Welcome everyone to Sea Trade Cruise Talks. So excited to be with you today on our Part 4 series of cruise development for destinations. Today with me is of course my partner in crime, Ioannis Bras. As in our Part 4, we're going to be talking about port grading and the improvement process. Now I hope that you are able to join us for our first 3 parts. In Part 1, we talked about just the basics and we had a wonderful guest speaker, Tim Litley from Seabourn Cruises. In Part 2, we went into the port presentations and technical details. And then we had Ugo Savino from Carnival Cruise Line come in and talk to us about the importance of preparing when you come in to meet with the cruise lines. Our Part 3 series, we went into social media and cruise exhibitions and all about the experience and the guest experience when they come ashore. And that was with Arnaldo Zanata from Silver Seas. It was a wonderful takeaway from that presentation. So much that he imparted into us. And all 3 of our guest speakers have been fantastic. Now today we have another wonderful presentation for you and another amazing guest. Chris Martin from Holland America Group will be joining us from the port team, and he'll be talking to us about the importance of port inspections and the important improvement process. But let's go ahead and get started now. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Shannon McKee. I'm the founder and president of Access Cruise Inc. Access Cruise is a small bespoke marketing and sales firm that consults on the cruise industry. We work with destination clients, we work with ports, we are working with tour operators and port agents and technology companies. And in fact, I am also the co-founder of a company called Zielia, which is a standardized platform for the cruise industry. But as I said, I do have a partner in these presentations, and I'd like to turn things over to Ioannis.
Hello, Shannon. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm Ioannis Bras, for those who don't know me. I'm the founder and CEO of 5 Session Consulting and Development. I'm based here in Greece, in the center of the restarting the cruising. I have a small consultancy business specializing in cruise development and the restart of cruising. And I'm very happy to be here today and sharing with you our 4th part of our webinars.
Thanks, Ioannis. So let's take a look about what we're going to talk about today. Today, we are going to talk about the port grading and improvement process. We're going to talk about a SWOT analysis for the port and destination, the port and destination performance evaluations and questionnaires, which I think really will reflect back on what Ugo had said about the importance of putting these questionnaires out there yourself and not relying completely for the feedback of the cruise lines. Also, a port and nautical evaluation. You can do secret shopper audits for passenger experiences, port improvement projects and the visibility of the process, as well as the port operations and the importance of a port inspection, which we'll be listening to Chris Martin for. So to start, let's take a look at a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis, this is one of my favorite analyses to do, especially when we bring on a new client. When we bring on a new client, this is one of the first things that we do is we take a look at the SWOT. We look at the technique and we try to uncover the opportunities that you're well placed to exploit. We want to understand what your weaknesses are and what those opportunities also may be. It helps us put the strategy together and it allows us to compete with others in the marketplace. And finally, now in this world, it allows us to put together a COVID plan. So our tip, as we said in our first few destination sessions, at the bottom of every page, if it's in blue, that's our takeaway tip. Those are the nuggets that we really want you to take away from these presentations. And the SWOT analysis is one of these that can go along hand in hand with a trend analysis. So the SWOT analysis for the port and destination, the most important step after the analysis is to propose a series of actions. I talk about this all the time. You know, the fortune is in the follow-up. And so once you put that SWOT together, it's really about those actions and how you follow up on those actions that are going to take effect. So always remember to allocate and answer the 5 questions for each of these. What, how, when, and how much. There are 2 ways you can use a SWOT. You can use it as an icebreaker, just helping people kick off a strategy meeting, or you can actually use it as a serious strategy tool. So here's a sample SWOT analysis. Strengths and weaknesses, these are your internal strengths and weaknesses of your destination and your port on what you can control and what you can influence. Then we take a look at your threats and your opportunities. And now what we're looking at is we're looking at those outside influencers. It could be everything from the government to your placement. Again, it's about looking outside, not inside, when we're taking a look at the threats and opportunities. But it's a great way to get started when you're looking at your port to put a SWOT analysis together before you come in and you present to the cruise industry. Now, I'm going to turn things over to you, Ioannis, for the performance evaluation and questionnaires.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Shannon. It's very important to be able to measure the performance of your destination. And here we put up a plan, a process map that may help you get your actions together. Obviously, you need to start by defining your functional objectives and set your minimum conditions of satisfaction. And in purpose, you will create a questionnaire that they will measure by interviews at least 12.5% of your passengers of that day. And then you need to set your KPIs. You need to review your results. And then obviously you have to do any changes. And as we said, in the improvement plan, you have to answer the what, the whys, and the whens, and the how much. And then of course you have to redo the whole process again. The plan is to be visible and communicate this with the cruise lines, ask the cruise lines for their own evaluation and make comparisons. And you know what? This is a process that involves the whole community, all the stakeholders, all the local community. They need to understand what they're doing correct and what they need to be improving.
Ioannis, you're a master at these processes, I have to say. And just reflecting back to what Ugo said, again, what the cruise lines love most of all is the fact that you have put that process in place and you know what you're hearing from the port, and then come and ask them and see if it matches, right?
That is correct. That is correct. So basically what you need to do, you need to come up with a systematic way, a solid questionnaire that you can use time after time. And you need to be very thorough on your interviews with your passengers, with your clients. If you can move on the page, please, Shannon. And okay, this is a very good example, a spidergram as I call it. Obviously here we have some, a result of the questionnaire. In one page, you can see with the red dotted line, the KPI. Here it's 85%. And you can see the areas, and with the one page, you can see how you have performed. You see that perhaps on the overall satisfaction, you scored 91, or in the transportation, you have scored 59. So exactly the areas that need improvement. And this is a very good way to discuss it with, as I said, local stakeholders and do something about it. And this is something that I can tell you the cruise lines very much like. Chris will, I'm sure, will agree with us later. And this is something which I've used again and again in ports, and believe me, it really works.
Excellent. The next piece is your port nautical evaluation form, and I think that Chris will help us here in getting into this. I'm not a technical girl. I'm more on the sales and marketing side with Access Cruise, but these technical documents are so important with the port teams, and I know that they're consistently asking ports to update these and keep these up to date, because it's such an important piece of the process when they're booking port calls into any destination. These nautical evaluations continue to grow and expand, and every cruise line right now has their own port and nautical evaluation. But when they put these in place, this is an important piece to make sure that you can get the green light to have a ship come into the port. The itinerary planner, of course, they're visionaries, as Tim talked about, that they look at the science, and they also look at the culture and the art of putting an itinerary together. But at the end of the day, if we don't get these port nautical evaluations in to the port teams and they can't give us the green light, you may lose a cruise call. So it's very important to get into these details, to keep these details up to date. I know that this is something that people think you do once and you put aside. There's ongoing port improvement processes, so these constantly need to be updated. And I know that I've talked to you before about Zielia in our last couple of presentations, but this is a perfect example of where you can house these documents in the Zielia platform so that the cruise lines have instant access to them. And once again, it's very important to be visual. As you can see in this port in a nautical evaluation form, you can see the bollards, you can see the fenders. These are important pieces, especially right now. With the cruise industry not sailing at the moment as we're filming this, we're not going to have as many people traveling to the ports to do these evaluations and firsthand evaluations. So a lot of it is going to be very reliant on some of these visuals. So an important piece are these port nautical evaluation forms.
Right. Another very important piece of work that I'm really proud is secret shopper audits. Basically, we have talked before how it is important to connect your port with experience and how you should really incorporate from the moment someone steps on their foot on the port, history, culture, and gastronomy. But you know, when you have a very systematic way on measuring and understanding the way you give out experience is very important. So basically, I have come up with a system, a very thorough system, where I can visit ports and do an audit, a two-day audit, that basically measures the whole lot, understands the connection of your port to the destination, see all your facilities, measure the Wi-Fi, measure the speeds, measure the disabled facilities, the whole lot. And basically, when we increase customer experience and we do it in a systematic way, it's something that will give us better grading, and the cruise line will also very much appreciate it. The importance is to try every year, all the time, to have something in motion. A small project that can go a long way towards providing better experience, a different experience. We talked about in our last session with hashtags. We talked about making some small projects that will showcase your destination, your history, your gastronomy. And these are moments that everybody will save and everybody will enjoy for the rest of their lives and remember. So if you have a way, we're here to help you, me and Shannon, or some other experts as well, but basically take care of your destination and do it thoroughly.
And here we go. Ioannis, you have these processes. You're so good at putting these in place.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've come up with it. Don't forget my background from risk management. I was doing shutdowns of nuclear power facilities. So, this is my style. But just to give you an idea, a rough idea on what we are basically doing here, experience, practice, safety. We see the facilities, the outdoor planning, the signage, operations, what's happening with medical, especially now with COVID, when we need new facilities. What's happening with the internet report, the disabled facilities, the flora, the gamification. These are just some of the features that you should be looking, and and you can do it by yourself. But if you need the help of some experts, we're here. And end of the day, as I said, communicate all this with the cruise lines, and this is something which you will get you a long way on getting more calls or receiving good help from them in terms of what you're doing and how it's performing.
Excellent.
I'll talk the first two, perhaps here, Shannon, because the first one is my baby. Yes. We said before, use technology, and we need to be sustainable and go away from paper. And the first slide actually shows a project where you can get out of the port, get out of the ship, and arrive in this very big, nice monitor. You can burst the bubble, and you can hear the news and learn the news of the day of your country. We know that internet is still not very accessible into some of the ships. So it's a very good way within a minute to find the news of the ship. The second one is the proposal. Many destinations have famous artists, famous sculptors, or famous cuisine. You should do an outdoor exhibition and showcase this. Showcase your prides. Your sculptors, your painters. I remember once we did, there was a film filmed in Irakli, my home city, which called El Greco, the famous painter. So I found the photographer when they're filming, and he was very gracefully gave us photographs when they're filming on location. And that lasted for 3 years. And I can tell you hundreds and hundreds of thousands of visitors saw this exhibition. Wow. There are other things you can do. Flora, the local products. You need to find ways, smart ways, to make people understand, feel, and smell of your local products. You don't need to spend a lot of money. You need to think outside the box. You need to be creative. And that's something that, as I said, you need to involve the local community. You need to be smart on the way you do it, and then people will appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about this and the experience. You know, I know that we're more on the technical side, but when we come to the port improvement projects, it really also talks about those experiences and how we bring those experiences in there. I think that the Herb project is probably one of my favorites. I love this and what they did with the Herb project and what you did with one of your clients in the past. Bringing that smell and that piece of it, because it's also goes into gastronomy with when you start talking about herbs, and it touches so many different senses.
And I'll tell you this, Shannon, that project increased sales in the area by 30% on the local herbs.
Right there. So now you're bringing more to the community by the simple project that was placed in the port. No, I think that's an excellent example. So, you know, we're going to go into, and again, I'm not the expert on all the key elements of a port inspection. I know I've been on the other side with ports when you know, Chris Martin and his team come in to do those port inspections, but that's why we're going to turn things over to Chris in just a moment. But, you know, what are those key elements? Know your audience. I think that's number one. And I think that we have reiterated that in all parts of this series. Know your target audience. Know which cruise line that you are talking to. Understand what motivates that cruise line. Are they premium guests? Are they contemporary guests? Are they luxury? So know your audience before you're doing a port inspection. Make sure that you have the right people present for this. There's going to be all kinds of questions. Who's coming to that port inspection? Is it the port guys only, or do you have the team that is responsible for the turnarounds and the ground handling, because they're looking at the experience and the paths and how passengers are going to be flowing through the port? So make sure that you have the right people present. Cooperation from all the key parties that are involved in the port calls, that's very important. Be present with all options available in your berth and your anchorage. Make sure that you have your port statistics available. This is very important. Make sure that you have these. Shoreside infrastructure, they're going to ask a lot of questions. Also, you know, the gangways and the shuttles, you know, what other assets are going to be provided? What's the accessibility, not only for the passengers, but also for the crew and the tours, and where will the transportation park? They want to understand the entire flow and the process of the port. What's the cleanliness of the port area? Again, going into that guest experience. Additional services that are available in the port: waste, water, security. The positive welcome and departure for a cruise ship. Now, cruise ships love this when there's some kind of welcome. And again, this is working with the community. So you're still working hand in hand in a port experience and the port inspection with the customer and consumer experience. And finally, we love this, you know, the itinerary planners will come in and they'll put a port call on there, but it comes down to when the port guys get involved, they're going to be looking for incentives to increase those cruise ship calls to your port and what that might look for. So be ready to have that conversation, because I don't care which cruise line it is, everybody's looking to you know, sharpen your pencil just a little bit. But at this time, what I'd like to do, Ioannis, any comments on any of this?
Yes, let me just add on that, Shannon, that unfortunately we have to add into this list the COVID situation. You need to be ready with your infrastructure, with your procedure, with your processes, in order to be able to get inspected, but also be safe and secure with all the mini infrastructure you need to add, your signage, your separators, and the whole lot, that you will keep your passengers as safe as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But at this time, I'm going to turn things over to a true expert on port inspections and port infrastructure, Mr. Chris Martin, who we've had the opportunity to work with now for many, many years. He's been at Holland America Group, so I'm going to ask him to turn on his screen there and welcome Chris to.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Ioannis. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. I know we have some time differences here with Ioannis in Greece and me in Miami and you in Seattle. So thank you for getting up bright and early this morning.
No, that's okay. It's a great way to start my Friday morning out here.
So Chris, talk to us a little bit. You've been in Holland America Group for how many years now?
I've been with the Holland America Group for, well, going on almost 21 years now.
Oh my goodness. And how did you
Yeah.
get started? Did you get started on the ships? Did you get started, are you a, a captain, or where did you start with Holland America Group?
Yeah, sure. No, actually, well, I started back even before that. I think it was actually during college. Just got word that some friends were driving motor coaches up in Alaska for a summer job, and so my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I decided to apply, and they came down and trained us how to drive 40-foot motor coaches, and then shipped us off to Alaska to give tours for the summer. And so did that for a few years, working for Princess Tours up in Alaska, and then that kind of transitioned into a full-time job working in Alaska for a few years, specifically shoreside, and then eventually moved back to Seattle and kind of transitioned more on kind of the ship side, working with Princess, and then eventually Holland America. And then, of course, we all became one big happy family a few years ago. And so now supporting the Holland America Group for Princess Holland, Seabourn, and Pinot, Australia.
Wow. So about how many ports now does Holland America Group go to that you're responsible for port inspections?
Boy, I mean, it's hard to say on an annual basis, and of course with everything changing now, but I'd say between the group, I mean, we go to easily 400 to 500 different ports over the year between all the different brands.
Wow. So that's a lot of port inspections for you, and a lot of port evaluations that you have to track.
Yes, yeah, definitely keeps us busy, and obviously we can't make it to every port all the time, but we try to get out to as many as possible, and make sure that everything is good to go before our ships arrive.
So Chris, tell us, when you go out to a port inspection, if you schedule a port inspection or your team schedules a port inspection, what do you look for? What's most important? How should a port prepare if you're coming?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think Shannon, Ioannis, both of you touched definitely on some of the key points that we're looking for. I think the number one, as referenced on the last slide, is knowing your target audience, because over the years, I've of course done several port inspections, or a number of port inspections around the world, and some of them have gone well and some of them haven't. And usually it starts off right away knowing the target audience. Obviously, with what I'm more interested in is more on the port side, a lot of the specifics. Can the ships get in and out? How to, passenger movement, and how do we make that work? And, that I want to make sure that I've got the right people there to, can answer my questions. And I, want to see the infrastructure, and certainly, knowing the destination is part of it, and being able to identify, for our shore excursion teams and marketing teams, is this a destination that is viable to bring our ships to? But I think that's really is making sure that you've got, again, the right people present, and know how to answer the questions that I'm likely going to ask. And again, many of them, of course, are referenced on the slide. And I think, Ioannis, your port questionnaire that you put up there is another key, having that information handy. The photos, I think, Shannon, you mentioned that as well, having the photos of the area, something that we can reference. And then knowing that, of course, we've got to go back and present the information to our management team as well. So the more information that we have that we can take back only enhances your opportunity to possibly add it as a destination for one of our brands.
So can you give us a couple examples? I know you said that, you've been to so many ports, and some have done it really well and some haven't done it really well. Can you give us an example of, somebody that's done it well, and what they did that really made the experience different from someone that didn't plan and prepare for your target audience?
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to think of a specific example. Well, there was, I'd say probably, one of the best ones I can tell you right off the bat that I had was even Singapore. Singapore did a very good job with it when they were building the new cruise terminal out there. They actually had put a query out to some of the cruise lines to come and visit, take a look. And part of what they did ahead of time is they kind of sent a pre-survey, basically, about, okay, what is it that you are interested in? What would you like to see? What are the questions that you have? Are things that we could do differently? And so, we completed that pre-survey, and then went out and right from the start, basically, they had the right people there. They had the ones, that needed to answer the questions. You know, we went right in, you know, took a port tour, saw the infrastructure. They had some large diagrams there actually put up for us as to what it was going to look like. They showed us the flow, actually had signage, you know, that dictated the way that the passengers would move and timing. And it was just very well crafted from start to finish. And then after we kind of did the port inspection, then went into a little bit more of, okay, well, how would the passenger flow work, and went out and saw the bus bays, and actually had a bus out there for us to kind of try the boarding and the flow process. And so it really gave it, you know, a good example of how it would work at, you know, at the new terminal out there. So I took that information back, and actually they had sent along a memory stick, but basically with the full PowerPoint presentation of everything we just gone through. So I was able to then take that back, sit down with our team, and clearly outlined, you know, to show this is how the new terminal will work in Singapore. And, you know, at that point, actually, we were one of the first ones to call out there to the new terminal in Singapore out of Marina Bay. So, so that, you know, to me was done very well, because again, they knew what it was I was interested to see, you know, and interested to learn about when I got there. You know, there have been other times where I've shown up for a port inspection, and, you know, in the case where maybe they just have somebody from the marketing department there. And so then unfortunately, that's kind of where then we spend a lot of time kind of talking about things they don't know the answers, and, well, let me get back to you. Let me get back to you. And that's okay. I mean, you know, certainly don't expect everybody to have all the answers, but at the same time, you know, that's where we say it's really good to know in advance what it is that we want to see, you know, get the questions answered, and then, you know, provide us with the information that we can then take back and share with our teams.
That's excellent. You know,
if they do the work easier for you, then you can do your work faster and more efficient, and help them with bringing your ships, I suppose. You know,
exactly. Yes.
I mean, you have 3 brands in different sizes, but they can study. You know, it's not so hard to find information about the size of the ships, about the clientele that you have, and be prepared, as you exactly said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and exactly. And in you know, in my case, and similar to some of my colleagues out in the industry, I mean, you know, we support multiple brands and have different ships and different clienteles that, you know, we're looking after. You know, it's, you know, not just one brand typically nowadays. And so, you know, make sure that you can provide the information specific. So, you know, I can look at it and see from my perspective, is this more of a seaborne destination, you know, for, you know, that type of clientele, and does that ship fit better in this market? Or is this more for, you know, a larger ship like a Holland America or Princess Cruises? You know, would that make more sense to have here? And then how would that destination support that demographic and that size ship? You know, is it viable? So again, you know, that's where we kind of say, you know, make sure you have that information there and kind of know your audience as to who you're marketing to.
and that's interesting that you point out, Chris, because, you know, how do you look at a destination or a port when you're doing a port inspection differently? Because you do service multiple brands, and with those multiple brands, you're at all different levels, right? So you have Holland America, which is a smaller ships in comparison to Princess with the larger ships, but both premium passengers. And then you have your luxury, obviously, with Seabourn. I mean, when you go into a port, I mean, do you look specifically for certain indicators on which of the brands fit best with a port or destination in advance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, we've done that many times, and you know, we'll go in with an idea, and obviously we'll do a little bit of our homework first and kind of say, okay, well, based on this destination, and I mean, this could be, you know, something of interest for, you know, one of our particular brands. You know, I was on a port inspection probably 2 or 3 years ago over in Spain, and you know, I think we kind of went in with one idea about, okay, well, maybe this brand would support this better, but then kind of found out, you know, in the end that, you know, in this case, actually, this was probably a better destination for the Seabourn brand, and kind of started then to change the conversation about, well, how could we market this as a Seabourn destination? And that eventually led to actually us, you know, putting calls in there on one of the Seabourn ships, and, you know, the ratings were very positive coming back. So, you know, it's kind of, and that's obviously part of the port inspection process too, is coming on site and actually seeing, and okay, you may go in with one idea, but then you come out with others, and then part of the process too, as we're there, is brainstorming, okay, how could this work? How could that work? And and collectively, how do we make this a destination that is appealing to a certain type of clientele or a certain brand.
Yeah.
That is why, as we said, the SWOT analysis is very important for a destination in a port, because then they will be able to identify the possible clientele for the destination, that is infrastructure-wise and excursion-wise, possibly, and put out the game out there in terms of preparing specific infrastructure on size and style to suit different companies.
Exactly, and we have destinations too that we look at that can support both brands, and again, I use the Seabourn versus say a Princess or a Holland, but each one offers unique opportunities, and that's where one of the points that was mentioned before was make sure that we know all of the options we have for bringing ships into port, because what we've done in some locations is that maybe there's a large cruise terminal that was constructed outside of town or, somewhere a little bit away from the city center, but we have an option that, in the city center or somewhere, more a different kind of unique destination, we might be able to slot in a smaller ship. So, make sure that we have that information because, in some cases, it may make sense for us to bring a seaborne ship into the city center and we can really market that as an opportunity, but at the same time, it still allows us the opportunity to get the big ships in and allow those passengers to have that experience as well. But, from our side, we can kind of tailor that, but it, kind of gives us a little bit of an advantage. Sometimes we can market it differently, but still provide a good opportunity for all, guests out there to see the destination.
Yeah. So Chris, you mentioned in Singapore that they gave you this presentation with flows and passenger flows and stuff in advance. I mean, and it sounds like it was really helpful to you. How do ports make your life a little bit easier? You have, obviously, the ports want to attract more cruise, ships to their destination. And we talked to Tim and Ugo and talked about, how to attract them. But actually, at the end of the day, I mean, an inspection with you and your team can probably make or break their chances of getting a port call, because you can say no if they're not up to certain standards. But at the same time, you have so many ports that you're trying to inspect and give the green light to. What is it that those ports can do? How can they prepare to make your life easier to help you help them get through the process, your process of getting that approval? I mean, is it something that they can put a presentation together like Singapore did with passenger flows to help you understand in gathering that information in a meaningful way that helps you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Shannon. I mean, I think the best answer, as I said, there would be the more information, the better is probably the best way to put it out there. I think it's kind of twofold. If it's a destination that we know, but let's say there's some improvements in infrastructure or they have the ability to take more ships or different ships. I mean, certainly that's something that we want to know and provide us with the information ahead of time. The one thing that we say to ports all the time is, if you're looking to invest in new infrastructure, if you're looking to, build a terminal, expand a berth or provide new opportunities for ships to get in, certainly come to us, ask questions, use this as a resource. We have no problem, coming back and suggesting, if, yes, this would work for us, or, well, actually, you're going to have to figure out a draft issue. We can't get the ships in, it's great you have this new beautiful berth, but if you don't, dredge the harbor a little bit, we still can't get our ships in there. And so, we'll work collectively on that. In some cases too, we may say, what, it's a good destination, but you really don't need to invest in a cruise terminal. It's maybe a port of call and the flow works well, and understanding that you may want to do it for other reasons, but for for our side that we don't feel the need to have a new terminal, and that's not necessarily going to lead to more cruise calls from our end. So we're always open to have a resource and have that open dialogue, and and that's where we say provide the information. Similarly, I'd say if it's a new destination we're not aware of, again, the more information, the better. We're always welcome people. And we have a number of people who come through our offices, and we'll sit down. We're always happy to give the time face to face. With any port that wants to come sit down with us. We can talk it through at that point. And again, have your information ready. We're going to ask the same type of questions at that point. And then if it is something of interest, then that's at that point where we would say, okay, well, yeah, why don't we come take a look? And, we'll figure out a time to come on site and see if, if it is a viable option and if it is something that, makes sense and works for us, then we'll, look to add it on, maybe one of the itineraries, maybe give 1 or 2 calls, see how that goes, and then, move forward from there. So, yeah, that's the key is just, open up the lines of communication, provide us with the information, and then, we'll see if we can make it work.
I always say, Chris, that this industry is based on building relations.
Exactly.
It's not so many of us. So to be able to very regularly send you some news, this is a small project we've been doing, or this is some improvements we've been doing, or when they, they want to introduce themselves, prepare your case study. I know now because of COVID, there's an option to do a Zoom meeting. So people don't need to, at this stage, travel all the way to Seattle to see you. I'm sure that, when someone is prepared, they can do within half an hour meeting, present you and send you all the information. And then when available, hopefully very soon, you can go and confirm for yourself. But that's a great advice for new destinations out there, and your diversification of your brands, and from large ships to luxury ships, make you an ideal person to chase and contact. You travel all over the world, and that's something very important. I'm sure that you'll be very popular after this webinar.
Well, and yeah, I know my Zoom meetings are going to fill up quickly, but no, absolutely though. No, I mean, certainly, while we're all kind of navigating this virtual world, I mean, I've had a number of conversations with ports out there, and again, same thing. Always happy to talk. Even if we can't do it face to face, in person, there's no reason, we can't do it, via a similar Zoom meeting or a virtual call. The other thing, I think 2 things I just thought about, to kind of add on to there. One thing in terms of, ports that, we try to advise too is that, ports need to keep in mind, particularly if it's a new destination, that, we're booking 2 to 3 years in advance. And so I know sometimes ports come and they'll do a great presentation, or we'll visit, and then, we'll go back and okay, well, why didn't you add us on for the summer? Why aren't we on your itineraries? And yeah, okay, well, it takes time. And so that's the other message we try to get out there is, don't give up hope. Just because we don't put you on, the itinerary for this year or next year, or maybe the year beyond, doesn't mean that we're not interested in your destination. So that's where we say, keep the lines of communication open, keep it fresh in our minds. And, and we'll be very upfront and say, okay, well, yeah, we're already planned through this point, but, here's an opportunity. So let's see if we can kind of work toward that. The other point, Ioannis, I wanted to touch on too, that you brought up is just with our new world that we're going to be navigating here as we return to service and taking COVID into account. And, this is something that we are starting to look at in terms of our, port inspections and even our return to service ports going forward is, what are the protocols that are in place, and that is something that is going to come up on future port inspections is, what protocols do you have as a port or destination to protect the health and safety of our passengers, crew, and locals too, your local staff or anyone that, our teams or, our passengers or crew may be coming in contact with. And, there are obviously the Healthy Sail Panel has issued a set of protocols out there that, the cruise lines are following, to give some guidance. I know there's been some of our European brands actually that have resumed service out there that I know some ports have been looking at to try to figure out, okay, what are the protocols that they're putting in place? So, I mean, this is something, again, to better prepare is how, as a port, when you come to us proactively, tell us, okay, well, this is what we've got, in place. And whether it's, we've got the signage there, we've got, messaging on social distancing, we've created a touchless system so that, we can, move our passengers and crew through, fairly quickly and get them safely back to the ship, minimizing staffing, how do we try to minimize staff? Because again, it's not only the health and safety of our passengers and the crew, but again, we really want to emphasize the health and safety of the local folks that are at the destination as well. So, we'll obviously this is going to be a work in progress, and I think for what we've seen and you've probably seen over in Europe, it's starting out very conservatively, and we're going to take a very kind of strong, strict approach to it initially, but then how can we collectively work together to make it a more, a better experience for everyone while still maintaining that integrity? The other thing I just want to add on that too is, I think it's inevitable. I mean, the way things are going, I mean, that we're going to have other cases that will pop up, and, we can only control so much. And so the other question that we are asking ports right now is, are you able to support, not only cruise lines, but any ship that would come into port that made any assistance to deal with a health and safety issue? And again, I feel that, we as the industry, have put some guidelines out there and protocols in place. And we've been actually, of course, trying it over in Europe and even with our crew, and seems to be working very well about controlling any outbreaks or such if you do have passengers that end up, showing up or testing positive at some point along the cruise. But that is our question that we're going back to the ports is can you help support us in that type of a situation? And in some cases right now, I mean, that's kind of making or breaking whether we're going to be returning to that port right away or not, because if they're saying, no, we can't do this, we can't help you, or we'll turn you away if you show up or tell us, this is the case, then, okay, well, then we may need to look to move our ships to a different destination until we, have a firm set of, guidelines out there that everyone could adhere to. So just a couple other points that, wanted to put out there to keep in mind when considering going forward and navigating this new world that we're all going to be entering in, or, well, we're already in, but, once the ships really start returning to service here.
I mean, I am one of the lucky ones, I suppose, because here in Greece, we were one of the first countries with protocols out there, both for cruise ships and ports. Actually, I've been certified to become a COVID inspector for cruise ships and ports. And I'm currently been working for EU Health Gateways on developing a cruise restart process map on what exactly you just said, Chris. It's important, and the correct terminology is contingency port, which is the terminology you were referring to before. I advise any port that can become contingency port. So basically, they can accept all 4 categories of patients, asymptomatic, light cases, hospitalized or ICU, to do so, to discuss it with the local authorities and prepare for that, because that would be a very good way for you to understand that they've gone through some steps further. You'll be able to say to you, look, come back to us because we prepared. And you know what, 21, the virus will be here with us without a doubt, even though we're hoping for a vaccine, even though there will be developments on testing, which will make hopefully things much easier from next year on creating bubbles in the ships. But still, every port has to seriously now take the time and, from all levels of stakeholders, from very high to very low, sit down and look at the protocols and the procedure and train the staff, get the equipment if they need to, and prepare, because, anyway, from next season, I think that definitely the ships will be out there. So the more that we prepare, the safer we're going to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's very true. And that's really where we are. I mean, that's our focus right now is, how not only how can we restart and obviously have the protocols in place, but, how can we get support from a lot of our destinations to support return to cruising and do it in a safe environment. And, as I said, if you look through the Healthy Sail panel and some of the protocols they put out there, and again, even what we've been doing over in Europe, again, it's very conservative initially. Right now we're trying to provide a very controlled environment in some of the destinations, but again, ultimately what we want to do is still provide a good experience for our passengers and, that are going there, and still be able to show them the destination, even though it's maybe in a little bit more controlled environment to start with. Those are the ideas that we're looking toward. And so again, if, ports can come to us, proactively and say, hey, just so you guys know, here are our guidelines, and here's what we're working towards, and here's how, we've read what the cruise lines are putting out there and what you've been doing, and here's how we think we can adapt to it, and here's how we can still provide, a good tour program while minimizing contact with, anyone from the local islands or the ports or destination, whatever it is, to still provide a good experience, but, provide that kind of health and safety barrier for our passengers, crew, and then again, the local nationals.
So Chris, I have a question for you. Do you have have you created, or your team started to create a checklist that might help the ports when it comes to, I know there's the healthy panel that everybody's looking at. But, you know, now when you start doing port inspections or you're going through the process of saying, yeah, approving ports, is there an actual checklist that you go through and say, okay, they have the signage, they have the contact list, they have the, you know, is that something that you work through even on a regular port inspection pre-COVID, but now post-COVID, I think it's probably even more important just to have something that the ports know that you're looking at, that they can almost go through and say, yes, we've done this, we've done this, so that when you do come in to do an inspection or we have a conversation or they set up the call, they can say, yep, we've covered all of our bases. You know, this was your checklist and we made sure that we've addressed every one of these.
Sure. Yeah, we do have checklists. I mean, certainly, you know, pre-COVID, you know, we have our kind of checklist or list of questions that we typically ask when we're on a port inspection that just provide some consistency and make sure that, you know, we've covered the bases of what we need to do. You know, I can tell you, you know, we are kind of developing a new set of questions and protocols that we will be going out to ports with to see if they're ready, you know, if they can handle, you know, a cruise ship based on you know, what our new situation when we return to service. You know, within Carnival Corporation, you know, we developed a set of guidelines as well with some key bullet points as to what our expectation is, you know, from the cruise line perspective and coming into a destination and what we need to see. And yeah, those are hopefully, you know, will be coming out here soon that, you know, we can share with all of our port partners out there. But yeah, I mean, very similar to what, you know, you've kind of seen with the Healthy Sail panel, but basically outlining, okay, well, we're going to need to make sure you have, this signage, or you need to have, you know, this much social distancing, or, you know, we need to find a way to, again, to do a touchless, you know, security screening, whatever it is, you know, to try to get our passengers through as quickly as possible without, you know, any potential contamination. So certainly, yeah, I guess, you know, the short answer to your question, Shannon, is yes, you know, we do have those, and we can certainly share some of them with ports if they have questions. And then as we develop our new set of kind of checklist items, you know, the post-COVID environment, then, you know, we're happy to at least get those out there as well, so ports can proactively take a look and hopefully address some of our concerns or things that we need to make sure are in place before we can bring a ship back there.
Right. I think that's, I mean, Ioannis and I, we've had a lot of talks around this. I've had a lot of ports that I've spoken to that said, you know, that's what they're looking for, is a little more guidance from the cruise lines and in a checklist of understanding, yes, we've addressed, you know, all of these points so that they make sure not to miss anything, because we've seen the EU Healthy Gateways has been wonderful for guidance for cruise ships to sail, but it's still a little open-ended, I think, for the port side. And Ioannis, I know you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and a lot of the ports I've talked to have said the same. Everybody's just looking for you know, a list that they can go down and say, yes, I've made sure that there's nothing that I've, you know, not addressed at this point in time. And of course that's evolving, right? It can change, but at least it's a starting point for us all.
Shannon, wait for a couple more weeks and it will be ready. I know this because I'm developing it.
Ioannis, I know you're the process master. You're the process king. That's why I love working with you. You are amazing when you put your processes together.
This is my background on nuclear power facilities. But one thing I want to take a note, Chris, is that also ports need to start developing their emergency COVID plan. Yes. And you know, this sometimes takes time to not to put it together, to make everybody agree, and to make everybody understand what they do when there is a positive case, and there will be a positive case, of course, and who is in charge. Sometimes, you know, this can be really, really tough to understand. So when they have the plan in place, they need to send you the plan, and so you need to know who to contact via mail or by call, you know, if you have a positive case. And to me, this is the most important part of the process. Setting the plan together, communicate with, you know, and train everybody on the plan, and then communicate with the cruise line. So if there is an emergency, you know exactly what to do.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and again, that's kind of what we're putting out to the ports right now. And again, it's a great time to proactively go out and you know, get your protocols together in terms of, you know, not only how would you handle a ship coming into port in terms of health and safety, and as we said, you know, the whether it's signage or, you know, we're putting hand sanitizers by the doors, or, you know, just kind of giving us, you know, some of that information in advance. But that is the second part, is okay, if we have a situation on board, if we need to debark somebody for, medical reason or potential COVID related reason, is your port able to handle that? And if so, what is the procedure? Because we need to do it as efficiently as possible and make sure that, we can, meet the needs of our passengers safely, but then also shoreside that we can, get the passenger somewhere where they can be, treated and then, we can continue and evaluate, what we need to do with the rest of the cruise at that point in time. But yeah, that's where now, and we've already had some of those discussions with some of our ports, that we're looking to return to service. And, and that's kind of what we're saying is, okay, well, we have our set of protocols and yes, we'll work towards those, but again, on a port specific basis, we need to know what is your plan. And in some cases, if you have multiple terminals, how are you going to, handle a situation in this terminal? What is the flow going to be in this terminal versus, another destination that you also manage? And, that's where we're trying to get out now and have those discussions. But at the same time, kind of push it back to the ports to say, okay, well, we need you to come back and tell us what your plan is. I mean, we can only do so much. And yes, we want to work with you and make sure that we're in alignment and agreement as to how it's going to work. But on a port specific basis, we need to know how you're going to manage, the situation if ships, return in the near future, and what is that going to look like?
Right. Chris, thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today. I know our time together is coming to an end, but is there any final words of advice and from your expertise that you can share and impart to us and the ports and destinations that may be listening?
I think, again, we just encourage, particularly as we all start to kind of climb back out and I keep referencing our new world of cruising that we're all going to be going into. But, don't be afraid to reach out to us. Let us know, what's happening in your port. Keep us updated. As we talked about a little bit earlier, I mean, always happy to have conversations with ports, relay anything from our side and similarly, just try to open, some of those doors again and make sure that we're all, proactively thinking about how to move forward. So, that's really the main thing from our side is, just be thinking about this and in terms of returning to service, what can you do to help us? And similarly, we'll work collectively with you to try to do what we can to make it a safe, healthy environment, that we can all operate in and still deliver a great experience, for each destination that we're calling in.
Thank you so much. You've been amazing. The advice that you've given is amazing. I know that so many people will be happy to hear that they can use you as a resource even if they're doing something new. And I think one of the pieces that I took away, and I've heard this before, is sometimes the ports go in and they look at infrastructure and improvement projects and they think, oh, we need a terminal or we need this or we need that. And at the end of the day, they really don't, right? Mm-hmm. It's simple. So come and ask and talk to the cruise lines and because you guys are resources for them that will help guide them on what will bring greater value to the port and a better guest experience for everyone that will benefit the community. So that was Absolutely. A big takeaway for me that we've talked about, and I know I've talked about it before. Ioannis, anything from you?
No, I mean, it was great. I mean, it confirmed that ports need to be proactive. They need to be preparing. It's a time that they can also, add some projects that will help the transition to the new era of cruising in the near future. And I'm very happy that you and your colleagues, all cruise lines are out there. So please prepare, be ready, and talk to the cruise liners, and and let's start moving things again very soon.
Exactly. No, it's a collective approach, and we'll certainly we're trying to get our ships back out there and operating, but looking for some help and guidance from the ports too to make sure that we can safely operate and still offer a great product. So yeah, no, absolutely. We appreciate the time, appreciate having me today, and yeah, if anybody has any any further questions or such, yeah, feel free to reach out. And again, from our perspective, we're happy to offer free advice, and you can take it or leave it.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for being a part of this today on our Sea Trade Talks. we're going to just wrap things up now as far as the talks and everything that we've worked on over the last 4 sessions that we've had. We had some takeaways, and as I said in the beginning, this was part 4 of our series. Our part 1, we really went into the basics of each of the cruise lines. In part 2, we talked about the importance of a port presentation and the technical tips. In part 3, we really focused in on some of the social media and the exhibitions, as well as that guest experience. And then, of course, today we went really technical in some of the evaluations that you can do and a port inspection. And Chris has been amazing in talking about really the resumption of services that are going to be so important to us as we move forward in our new world. So what are the top 10 takeaways that we've talked about, Ioannis, over the last 4 series that we've talked about? I'll let you start on this one.
Yeah, sure. Let me add something before we start that we you may have discussed is that we need to be positive. We need to think that the situation will resume as normal. And our sessions, our 4 parts, were all about this. We will get over the situation. The situation will resume as normal, and we need to be a bit positive and think beyond COVID's era. So budget as well always. Be persistent and assign a budget for your cruise development. This is very important because then you will be able to handle carefully your marketing, your small infrastructure, your small projects, and your communication with the cruise lines.
Right. Understand the culture, and each cruise line is number 2, because each cruise line has its own culture. They have their own drivers, they have their own personalities, and the reasons they make decisions. Not all cruise lines will make the same decisions because each of them have those different drivers, whether it be number 1, guest experience for the luxury brands. Revenue for the more contemporary brands will be a key driver. So understand the differences between the cruise lines. Very important as you prepare in meeting with them.
You need to target not only the itinerary planners in your communication, but also you need to target the influencers from within the cruise line, which is the marketing department, the excursion department, but also influencers from the community. And I want to say community, the worldwide community. When you create demand, the people and cruise lines will want to come to your destination. So be persistent and target everybody.
Right. And of course, we talked about this. The first call is always the hardest. The cruise lines, when you come in to meet with them, they'll say, well, who else has been there? So that's always the hardest nut to crack. But once you crack it, we know that more cruise ships will come. So the first time will be the hardest. And, in relation to that, I think Chris made a very good point when we were speaking to him. And I know we talked about this before. Remember, the cruise lines are preparing 2 to 3 years in advance. So because you met with them, this month doesn't mean that you're going to have your first cruise call within 6 months time period. You're probably looking for 2 to 3 years out before you're going to get that first cruise call, but at least it's on the books.
That brings us to plan and prepare. One size does not fit all, and this is so true. When you go out and present to a cruise line and you have a slide with a different cruise ship, cruise line, it's not very good. You need to know your audience. You need to know, which cruise line you're presenting to and be specific. It will go a long way towards showing them that you have done your investigation, you know your business, and you want their business to come to you.
And that goes into what Chris was just saying too. Even when you're doing a port inspection, plan and prepare, know your audience, know the brand that you're presenting to. Make sure you think smart, think outside the box. It goes, again, one size does not fit all. So think outside the box. As Chris mentioned just a few minutes ago, you can think outside the box when it comes to your marketing and your initiatives and how to get more social media and become more media savvy, but as well as in the ports and some of these port improvement projects that you can do. Ioannis, you gave a great example with the herb project that's there on the pier on ways to enhance the sight and the senses there. So, think outside the box. It doesn't have to be overly expensive. And a port project doesn't mean, or a port infrastructure project doesn't mean that you have to build a new terminal building. That may not be the best value for your dollar. So think smart and think outside the box.
That's so true. And you know what? Technology can help on that. The innovations we can do now, phone apps, digital monitors, digital apps now, even to help you with, COVID situation, can go a long way. And be, sustainability is something we look all more and more at this time of the season and the years as they come. And you know what? Technology can innovate how you present your destination and how you connect your destination with one website. Show the herb, show a recipe, show how the recipe is being performed. It's all about experience.
Yeah. Connect. Make sure you get out there and get connected. The cruise industry is a relationship industry. You need to build your network, build your relationships. Very important that you're out there. Not just Chris, but you heard the same thing from Tim and Ugo and Arnie. Use them as a resource. They want to get connected to you. They want to talk to you. Just remember that the cruise industry and the cruise line executives, they're busier than ever. Sadly, through this COVID situation, many of the teams have been reduced in size. So it's, just be persistent, but get out there, connect, network. Very important to build those relationships and maintain those relationships in this industry.
One thing which is very, very important, especially now, is cooperation. Cooperate will take you a long way. Work together with your local stakeholders, the local associations, create small projects that you can showcase the cruise lines. It's something that it will go a long way, not only bring your destination in the front line of developing and showing and increasing spending in the destination, but also it will create a link between the destination and the cruise ships and the cruise lines.
Yep. And finally, tap into the experts. Ioannis and I are both experts in the cruise industry. There are many more experts in the cruise industry that are consultants or even the cruise line executives themselves. But tap into that expertise. I think that, I have many examples, as does Ioannis, of different ports and clients that we work for that were out there pounding the pavement, but not doing it the right way and not making any progress. When we came on board, we were able to guide them and we were able to bring immediately results that showed an ROI. So I'm not saying that it's just Ioannis and I out there, but there are a lot of experts out there, and tap into that expertise. All of us have different expertise. As we've talked today, Ioannis is an amazing at process mapping. He truly is. So, think about what it is that you need. Are you looking for somebody for sales and marketing? Are you looking for somebody to put a process in place? Are you looking for an infrastructure specialist? But tap into the expertise that is out there in the industry, because there are a lot of us out there that can help you and put you on the path for success.
Any more last words of advice before we go, Shannon?
Ioannis, no, I don't have any last words. I just want to say what a pleasure it has been doing this series with you. Cruise development for destinations. I think that I really learned a lot from working with you, as well as working with Tim and Ugo and Arnaldo and Chris. I speak with these people all the time and these executives all the time. But at the same time, when we come together and we do these sessions, I feel like I talk to people and I say, make sure that you take a nugget away from any of our presentations. And as I say that and I'm giving the presentation, I take nuggets away myself. I think about our session with Arnie and the guest experience. And, we talked about, setting your intentions and doing it on purpose every time. But he brought up something called aggressive hospitality that I had never heard about before, which is being upfront and putting yourself out there. So, I love this because, it's a growing experience. I've been in this industry now for 30 years. I am an expert in the industry, but I have to say that, I continue to learn every day from others. And I always keep that open and positivity because I want to learn more from everybody else.
That's so true, Shannon. I always say it's a dynamic situation, especially now. Talk to us. We can give you a lot of free advice. Sometimes we'll point you to the right direction. To us, it's important to get things starting, doesn't matter if we there, if you hire us or not. It's important to get the process rolling. Cruise industry is a very strong, resilient family, and I'm very optimistic that things will go back to as normal as they can be really soon. And definitely next year, we can see a worldwide restart of cruising and get the family back together, next year in one of the shows, and we can meet in person. So thank you everybody for watching. And there's only one thing to say, Shannon, on your last click. Thank you and safe sailing.
Thank you, Ioannis. Safe sailing. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.